All right, so this is Kidlit Tuesdays, and this week in August, or this month in August, we're going to do tips to avoid frauds and scams. And I'm co-hosting with Melissa Hudson, and we are so excited to share this with you. We see this come up all the time as we moderate and admin a couple of groups together, and this is just stuff that we are often seeing, and that we want to just get the word out to really help other people to avoid some of the same pitfalls that we see people falling into all the time. This is not an exhaustive list. There's so many different things that are potentially out there, but hopefully this will give you like the perspective to be discerning and kind of suss out whether something's legit or not. So my name is Mandah Swift, and I'm a children's book illustrator. I've illustrated 3 published books with 2 more releasing this year, which is the plan, and then it should be another 5 more for now. There might be more in 2025, which one of those will be my own. So I'm really excited to work on that. And I live in Ohio, and I have a husband, 2 kids, and 2 dogs. So that's a little bit about me. And then Melissa, if you
Sorry, I'm still over here getting messages from people who are letting me know that they can't make it. But yeah, so I am also an illustrator. Um, I did 2 small press children's books through Kitsap Publishing. One was in partnership with a firefighter, which was tons of fun, and he's actually still hitting the bookstore circuit. So he reached out and asked me if I was interested in coming to do a signing and book read with him, which I think I'm going to be doing in the next month or 2, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Um, I've mostly pivoted to comics and graphic novels. I have one full-length graphic novel that I had solo written and illustrated that was published in 2015, and I have just finished my second one with a young adult target audience. I haven't found a publisher yet. I'm kind of just starting. And yeah, I've done a bunch of other comics and short stories for various publishers. Um, and they with a targeted age range between like middle grade and adult readers. So that's pretty much it for me. Amanda, did we lose you? Oh, there we go.
sorry about that. My phone decided it wasn't going to work anymore. So
Oh, that's exciting.
perfect timing too, right?
Yeah.
I'm
No,
like,
it was fine. I had just finished talking, so
okay, awesome. Let me adjust this here. Okay, so I was trying to get some better like visual there for the recording. That's all right. All right, so I have to listen to your introduction later, Melissa. Not that I'd already know it, but maybe there was some new insights. So we got to know Joy. So Joy, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself really quickly, so that way other people can get to know you as well that listen to the recording, that would be great if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, I'm Joy Fowler, and I just retired from teaching 37 years. I have published one children's book called Buddy's Broken Heart, and it's based on my rescue dog, and it's a book on helping children with grief. And I just published it last year, and so I'm still learning all of the ins and outs of marketing and all that sort of thing. So I'm very new to the whole author world. And that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And hopefully, we have some others joining here momentarily. There might be some, maybe they're still figuring out the technology side of things. I know that can be difficult. Sometimes it's like I was having some technical difficulties. So I'm going to go through first some things for authors to look out to. So, tips on what to watch out for when you're publishing your book or in that process or promoting it later, anything throughout that process. And then we will cover like things that illustrators can look out for later. So I think it's just to get a lay of the land in terms of like the different main entities that I see out there. So there are established companies and illustrators, organizations or websites that, you can see that there's an investment of time and money and know-how to build that online presence and references, or just you can see that they're very established in the industry. And so that's a good sign. And think of it like a storefront, right? So a storefront that you see that, has been there for years, and, the community, they're involved in the community. They are, getting good reviews on Yelp, whatever. So you would feel much more like, okay, that they're not just gonna like leave in an instant, right? So there's traces of them around, and I'm gonna be able to know like where they are. And so the difference is that when you're seeing people that are more like the scammer type, so they want to just invest as very little time as possible, no money. They want to be able to easily and quickly disappear without with people's money without a trace. So think about like the Monte Carlo card games, or like the little street sellers that are just doing quick, and they can just leave. They just have just like a little table or like little offering on a blanket. Um so those people, they can sell you, that Gucci bag, or they can do like the scam, like this card game. And the authorities come around, they can just disappear in the crowd and you'll never see them again. So when you're looking online, kind of be looking out for signs that this person is not established online. They don't have a long-term presence. Maybe, they don't have official presence like with a website, or, with an organization. So because the more that they're visible and long-standing, if they're ripping people off or doing scams or anything like that, they're gonna get called out on it and shut down. Or, people are gonna know, right? So these are things to kind of just like a general like way to discern online as and in the world, as you're trying to deal with finding legit people to work with. So the top 3 tips I have for authors, kind of like general categories really, is of course check their online presence. Do they have a portfolio website, or is it just like I'll send you some images by DMs, right? Or how active are they on social media, and for how long? So did they just open their account, they've got a last week or last month, or just really soon, or have they been online for years? The next area is to research their portfolio work. So we're going to talk more about this, but just, are they producing hand drawn art, or are they just kind of like saying that they do, but they're actually producing, AI clip art, and maybe even stealing other people's work for to scam you. And do they show any progress in this day and age of digital ANI and all that? Being able to show their progress stages can help reduce that. Melissa showed me a new thing where there's a new app, I believe, that actually will show that progress for you. Melissa, do you remember the name of that app?
Oh gosh, I don't. Hold on. I can scroll back and find it.
Yeah, so that's not a 100% thing, but it can help. So that you can see kind of like that they have a progress of sketches, line art, which should not look exactly like the sketch. The both should be slightly different. Flat color, and then like maybe their, final art or some other stages. So there should be a variance and visibility into their workflow process. Melissa will get that. We can always send that by email later too. I think that'll be a good thing in the resources packed by email. And then the other thing is to look into their published work. So if they are an illustrator for children's books, they most likely have illustrated a children's book before yours. I mean, it is possible someone is brand new, and I'm always for giving that person a chance and everything. But a lot of the illustrators you work with, especially if they say that they have illustrated a book before, there should be a public record of that on Amazon, or Ingram Sparks distributors or Summer, right? That's a public, well-known site. And take a look at it, see what pictures they show. Is it good quality? Does it look like they used, AI or clip art or anything like that? Is there good reviews on the book? And then how many reviews, which is a little bit outside of the author or the illustrator and author's um, ability, like, control. But, if it's not getting a lot of reviews, like that means, that's a little bit sus. And then, does the illustrator have any references? So anybody they've worked with, maybe it wasn't on a book, but maybe there were other client projects that they have for references. So these are the main top 3 tips, to just, without even having to contact the illustrator, most likely. For a lot of them, maybe the references one, but for the rest, you should be able to check these things out before you even contact the illustrator. So that way you can do some research on illustrators that you're interested in working with. So along the lines of online presence is portfolio. So when you are an author looking for an illustrator, it's important that you're looking in the right spaces and that you're making sure that what the illustrator is doing is more of like a legit company. Because remember, back to the storefront versus, the Monte Carlo card game. Is it something where, they're more established, or it's a reputable site or not? So things to avoid are places like fiverr.com. I know people recommend that all the time. There are good illustrators on there, I'm sure. Too bad the majority of them are not. You get what you pay for. So fiverr.com is definitely one of those. And then Upwork is also along that. It's not quite as bad as Fiverr, but there is a lot of issues on there as well. And both of these sites are known to be exploitive for illustrators, and that's not great. So, that's just not a great place to look. I've seen so many times I've had to remove them from our group is Google Drive portfolio links. I would never click on a Google Drive link from anybody I don't know. I don't that's just not very professional. If they can do that, they can create an Instagram account, or they can create a free site on there's a free portfolio on behance.net, or there's all kinds of options. They do not have to do a Google Drive. So I would not again, because that's not public, right? So we want to look for a public portfolio, and that is not it. And then they only want to send you examples like in DMs or emails or something else that's not public. So that's definitely not it. Again, that's easy to just have a few images you've saved offline and then just send that, via DM or email. It's not easy to build a whole portfolio and think about it and make it professional. So we talked about no public portfolio. Recently opened accounts, so they do have an Instagram, but it's very new and there's not very many posts. So that's again with the low activity. So things that you want to look for is the website portfolio. So they have purchased their own domain, they've created their own website. There's lots of different ones that are free or low cost, and there's other ones that are more expensive. So they have gone through that trouble, and they pay the fees that they have to pay. Because I know, like with Squarespace, it's like over $300 a year, I believe, plus the domain. So I mean, it's an investment, but it's something I feel is very important and really, is helpful for my business, to have one place to go for everything. So that's definitely like that's definitely what you want to look for. Some other options are if they link you over to readsy.com, because Readsy vets every single illustrator that goes there, and they become more and more picky. So like I just try to submit to be there, and they're like, oh, you have to have 5 published books that are in good review. Like they have lots of good reviews. So I have 3. I will have 5 soon, so I'll resubmit. But so that just kind of shows you they're that's just a minimum requirement. So from there they just pick and choose if you're quality. So that's definitely another good place to go. scbwi.org is Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators. So they are a great organization. They're across the globe, and they don't vet anybody that's on there, but I would think that if anybody were to post obvious AI and clip art, I would think that they would have an issue with that. But you do have to pay $85 around, depending, I'm sure, where you're located, a year. So that kind of deters a lot of people that are just, again, trying to have that quick buck and leave, like the street the street hustler. So that kind of deters a lot of people from joining SCBWI. And so that's another great place. They have a gallery of all kinds of illustrators. Another one is children'sillustrators.com. I think you have to pay like over $300 a year to be there. I don't know like how much vetting they do or things like that, but obviously the price tag alone is going to deter a lot of scammers and fraud people. Behance.net is a free portfolio site. I am Melissa, I haven't made one yet, and I know you did a whole post about that. Do you mind sharing a little bit about Behance.net?
Yeah, well, it's tricky because in this age, so many portfolio sites have basically sold the rights to all of the images hosted there to AI scrapers.
Mm,
And Behance is affiliated with Adobe. So a lot of the artists that I know of have kind of fled from there just because, Adobe has sold us all out.
yeah.
And the same is true of DeviantArt and ArtStation. And I think most artists right now, like most of the serious artists, are fleeing to places like Kara. Yeah, a lot of them are on Instagram. Um, gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that I've used. Yeah, so many of them, unfortunately, have just no longer are a safe place for artists to share art. So
Yeah, that
it's,
is a growing problem. I
yeah,
would say at least Behance.net is you can
yeah,
kind of
I would
see
take
when
the
they
artist
posted
right
stuff. It's
away.
sort of like a social media almost.
Yeah,
So if you do come across people in Behance, I would still say it's like you have to be discerning, but
yeah,
I would say it's still, at least there's some legitimacy there. It's public.
yeah.
You can see how long they've been posting,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. I would treat it almost like Instagram because again, you can see how long they've been posting and you can see their stuff publicly.
Yeah. From
Kara,
that
all that kind
point,
of stuff.
yeah.
Because there is having your own website or getting in some of these that's can be cost prohibitive for some people. And a lot of artists starting out or just in different areas and stuff, they don't have that kind of money. So
Mhm.
unfortunately there's not, like you said, a lot of great free places that's legit and everything for people to post. But yeah, we're hoping that Kara is going to turn out well, but you just never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, because Instagram and I think Facebook too, but I'm like, I can't pull out of Facebook, so I just pull out of Instagram mostly. Um, is another one, but again, just like Behance, you gotta just check, and see how long have they been posting, and do some other checks that we're gonna do here in a minute. So, so
Mhm.
these are kind of I put them at the end because they're like meh, they're okay, but they're not like the best, right? So,
Yeah.
the better ones
Anybody
would be like
start
these
one.
ones up here. So,
Yeah.
cool. All right. Everybody knows, probably if you've been in the kidlit industry more than 2 seconds, you've heard about the artificial intelligence and the big kerfuffle with that. So obviously there's some concerns, and it's not just the whole stealing thing, which is obviously awful, because the generators pull from artists, art, just like we were mentioning, from different websites and different, things like that, and then without permission and no payment, and then that's how they create the images. So they've kind of gotten around with fair use on that front. That's why they've been able to do it, if anybody's curious. But causes some big issues. There's like the lack of character and style consistency, which we'll go over here in a moment. You're unable to copyright your images in your book, which is like huge. And this is actually going to be a hyperlink to a web article about that. So that's really, really huge. It also then kind of evolves into your characters you don't have the IP or the trademark. You can't trademark them. So, if you want to do a whole series or you really want to push this to be more than just, a few books or whatever, and you really want to make it big, you're gonna really limit yourself. And then of course they flooded the market. So, it's cheap, it's or free, and people are just doing it left and right and just flooding the market, and people are not there. It's not unique. A lot of them look very similar. And then people are just kind of getting sick of it. It just has that same look, and that's definitely going to be happening more and more. Now there's also errors. which cannot be easily edited because, first of all, usually the people making the AI aren't artists and illustrators. And then also, it's not like a regular art where you have multiple layers and you can just like, oh, you want to change that color or whatever, and then I can do that. Or um, you have to go into their prompting and like do it all over again. And you may not get anything close to what you did the first time. So it can be very difficult to get exactly what you want. I think there was this company that tried to replace their artists with AI generative people. So people that would go in and do prompts, and they thought it was going to save them tons of money, and they had so many times where they would say, okay, this needs to be changed, but then they would just go in and do a new prompt. And so I mean, they knew that they were using AI, but they would go in and do a new prompt, which of course, would cause more issues, or didn't fix the original problem, or now it's completely different. And it just was so much because the main art director did not want this, but it was like the company. And so after so many times back and forth, he finally went back to the company and like, hey, look, like we ain't getting it. It's been like 50 edits, feedback and changes, and we're still not there. Like, so they eventually did get rid of that, which is great. And I know a lot of companies and organizations are saying no to AI, which is awesome. Of course, AI kind of has that uncanny soulless look to it, um, that don't connect with audiences. So that's another big concern because the whole point of children's books is to connect with children and of course their parents. And if you're not connecting with your audience because your art isn't, the images are not doing it, then that's obviously a big issue. Otherwise, why are you in a picture book? You could just do a chapter book or something. And then a growing number of people are boycotting AI altogether. So like I know myself personally, I'm in that sector. So like if I see a book that has AI or I think it's written by AI, I'm not gonna support that. So that's definitely gonna put a hamper on your book successful. So this I thought was kind of fun. So if you can spot the 9 errors, now there's more than 9, but I figure the 9 most egregious errors that are on here. So if you want to just take a moment here and try to spot the errors, and then we'll go over them here in a moment.
Absolutely classic that the robot does not look the same in any of the 3 images.
Yeah, so this was all actually from the same book. This is like a case study of like this is what people are doing.
Mhm.
And this is from the same book, and these are supposed to be the same 3 character or same 2 characters in each picture. Obviously, they're not.
Yeah.
Even like, styles have changed and everything. So, all right.
I think it's worth saying that like AI looks cheap because people know that it is cheap. Like if it's not something that you're paying real money for,
Mm-hmm.
it's cheap and it makes your book look cheap. Like
Yeah.
there's no getting around that fundamental truth of we know you didn't pay anything for this art, so why should I pay for this book?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not only that, but it's like we have like that sixth sense, I think, for things. It's like, when you touch certain material, it's quality. Or when you look at different cars, you can see which ones are cheap and which ones are expensive. Like our brains are trained to like spot that, because that's just like an instinct thing because, obviously, you know, you don't like if you're out foraging back in the day, like you have to know like what's what. And so we have a very nuanced ability to know these things. And so our brain, even if we don't know exactly why, we can just go, I don't like that, or that doesn't look good. Or that looks cheap or whatever, because we just know. Like we just know innately that something's off. So these are the main errors. Obviously, they're not all of them. There's so many. I did want to like just put red all over the page. But these are things that you can take a look at when you're looking at AI images. Obviously, they don't match. That's a bonus one there that we already talked about. The characters don't match. They're supposed to be in the same story. They don't match. You'll see a lot of issues with hands. So you can see it. This is actually the book too, but like the hands are just weird, right? They're just because artists have struggled with hands, and so then AI really struggles with hands. Another issue are the eyes, and I don't know if I can zoom in here. Um, it's like it gets in that like uncanny valley of like, see if I can, they're just, that's not right. Ugh. So obviously,
Thinking anime sparkle eyes way too far.
yes. And again, you do need to kind of zoom in, because further away, these eyes may look okay to some people that aren't like an artist, right? But if you zoom in, you can just see like that's not right. Like this pupil's all weird, and then like that one's wiggly, and the or that's the iris, but the pupil is like not defined, and it just doesn't look right. Right? So our eyes can see that that's just not right. Um I think it was trying to add maybe extra eyes on this robot here, perhaps. I didn't know. It just, not that the eyes match or anything, but it just some extra parts like that. You'll see extra particles a lot of times in the images. So and then like things like, and this can happen to real artists too. These some of these things can happen with real artists. We make mistakes, but when you have so many in one image, or it's already kind of feeling like AI, and you start seeing these things, that's definitely a huge red flag. So like her leg, like I don't know where that's coming from, but it's not her hip. Like it's detached. I feel really bad for this girl. And then like this shoe is like super weird and has a huge gap in the back. And if you saw her other shoe, I'm sure it wouldn't match. That's another big thing. Um, so like you'll see deformities, extra limbs, like this butterfly is like got an extra wing hanging off the side here. Um, they have AI has a really hard time with books. So like this one here, like it just kind of like has a weird ending. It doesn't look right here. And then you'll see like the lines are all blurred up here too. And it's a little bit better in the background, but it's still bad. Um, her eyebrows are kind of mismatched. Same for her. She's got one like caterpillar, one thin. Her eyes are kind of weird. Her mouth's kind of weird. I'm feeling a little freaked out by the mouth. Anyway, so you get the point. There's usually a lot of times they have mess ups with limbs, hands, arms. You'll see like if two people are like kind of hugging or holding each other, then like there's extra appendages. Like there's one around the waist and on the shoulder for two people. Like yeah, just lots of weird stuff happening. And like her hair, that's like the extra particles. Like there's no reason to like draw random hair just like out in the not attached. So yeah, lots of weirdness. I put some more examples in here. I didn't do the spot the differences, but so this one I'm sure that they put like reading sitting on top of a book or something, and it's just a head on top of a pile of books. Like that's super weird. The books are also pretty janky. Like I said, they have a hard time. Like this is one book, but it looks like multiple on the side. This one's like half a spine. I don't know. This one too. This one's got a spine on the corner. Um, the things floating don't make much sense. Over here, she's got really smooth hair, and then like shorter hair up front. Doesn't make any sense. She's got like 3 earrings. It's just, her hair is behind, which I mean maybe that could work, but um they also don't seem to have any legs. Um yeah, just lots of oddity. Of course, they can't figure out what's going on with the pages here. It's like the books are all melding into each other. And so the same. So I'm gonna send these off in the email afterwards. So you can kind of look at them over and see. But there's even in something like this picture over here, there's just like uh oddities happening. Like see over the side here, like that doesn't make any sense. He's got an extra arm, stuff like that. So his hands are really super weird. Yeah. Did I? Okay. So here's some more. Just to, again, give you an idea. So if you look at this here, the rainbow is really nice. I think the AI did a great job on the rainbow, but he's got 2 different color shoes. What was some of the other ones about this one? There's just like random stuff attached to the tree. Um, the squirrel like has a bunny ear and like a squirrel ear. There's just like, I don't know, there's just like some craziness going on. Of course, the books are all messed up and stuff like that. So you can kind of take a closer look at that one. And then here, like they're all attached by the hands. Like if you look at it, maybe this one's not, but like the
Mm.
hand just is both of them. And yeah, because at first glance you could go, "Oh, this is really beautiful," and then you start to look at the like eyes on this other side here are just like super weird. Um, really kind of weird on that side. Their hands, like this one, she does. I mean, maybe these people have deformities, but um, yeah. So there's just like sometimes it's more subtle like that. Like if you're not really paying attention, you might not notice it. So that's why, as you're discerning and looking, you have to really, the butterfly's got multiple wings, more than it needs. Even stuff like this little lizard guy here, he's got like extra nose, maybe an eye. It's like looks almost like an
Yeah,
eye over here. The
too many toes.
typical AI eye here. Like weird bumpiness, which I mean that could be, but he's got different number of toes on each and different number of hand bits. And if you look at the background, like a lot of times the leaves won't make sense either. So yeah, lots of things to look out for and see. Because at first glance, some of these could look really good.
Mhm.
So a lot more of the uncanny valley here with her. If you look at her eyes, she actually like two pupils or something that's really creepy, and then weird eyes. Like I don't know if that's supposed to be a panda or what. You know, elephants are so small, and the lion with spots is so big. Just a lot of times they don't know. Like I don't know what creature this is supposed to be. So yeah, it's just really really start to look and see at the images, because once you start looking at AI images like that, you're going to be able to catch them in like 2 seconds. It's going to be so easy. I know at first it can be really hard, and I wanted to kind of show you some images that you can study and see what's AI, because I know there's a lot of people out there that can't discern that very well, and it's really really important this day and age to know. All right, so clip art's another big one. And we'll go through the examples and stuff, but it often looks really boring and lifeless. It fails to connect with the reader, which was the other problem with AI. A lot of people say that they're an illustrator, and then they end up doing AI or clip art, so that's a big issue. Is they're disguising themselves as an illustrator or as illustrations, which they're not. They're just piecing together parts of images and like pre-made images and just making it into an image, like a scene. So that is not an illustrator. An illustrator creates by hand custom. um so that really is, and we'll talk about that, it really limits the poses, the scenes, editing options, because they're not creating it from scratch. So if you want someone to have a different hairstyle or different color, I mean, they may or may not be able to do that. What if you want a different angle? What if you want them to be running instead of standing? Maybe you want just something completely different than they offer. They may not be able to do it because they have limitations with their clip art. The other big problem is legal issues. So you could land yourself in trouble by not having the correct licensing for commercial use with your clip art. So that's a big problem. You cannot copyright the images or own the IP or trademark the characters because they're not original, right? And then that of course they're generic and not unique to your book. So those kind of go hand in hand. So same kind of issues as with AI, just kind of a different thing. So instead of usually a person has created these things. I'm sure they're making AI clip art these days. But I'm sure that someone has created these things once, and then they sell the licensing and to be used over and over again. So it's kind of similar, but an actual an illustrator or somebody has created them to begin with. So here's another one. Can you spot 13 errors? Again, it's probably the whole image, but so I think any of them you choose would be fine. But I'll give you a second here to try to see if you know for yourself.
Yeah,
And
'cause I'm new
how
to keep it
often, Melissa,
to,
would you say that we get clip art
oh
books and
gosh.
illustrators? And our
Every day, sometimes multiple times a day. It is
yeah.
like playing whack-a-mole. Just nope, don't share that. Nope, don't share that.
Yeah. So the reason why we're so against it is because it's not illustrating for one. So our groups are about illustrators and authors. So this has nothing to do with an illustrator. And so if an author, you know where to post it, we still wouldn't approve that because that's not great for the illustrators because that's taking work away from them. And because of the other problems we talked about, obviously it's not a high quality custom art, and so that's kind of what we focus on in our groups. We don't want to post anything that's outside of that. So yeah, that's why we can be so harsh on clip art. There's a time and a place for it, but this children's books is, in our opinion, not one of those.
Yeah,
Like I
it's
said,
hard
it could
enough
be
to
the
be.
entire page, but here are some things to point out. So the trees are the same, they just copied it and mirrored it. And this is actually a gap here too. There's just another tree back here. So, you know, that's where that stork is, or pelican. And you can see the size difference is not like I don't know if they're just not taking the time because again, they want to do it quick and fast. So the deer is like the same, just barely bigger than a bunny and a raccoon, which in real life is, I guess maybe if it was a baby, but they don't usually have horns then. So again, antlers. Um, so the sizing is often like the giraffe, like that's not right. Giraffes are so much taller than these animals. And again, for the elephants, this is not the right sizing. So a lot of times they're just putting and placing and they're not really thinking about it. The other thing is with the giraffe is it's a totally different style. So you can see in the eyes that all of these have different like Disney eyes almost, I want to call it. This one has little tiny, you know, dots for eyes. So same thing with the alligator here, totally different and much more realistic, whereas these are much more cartoon. So you can look out for that as well. And then you've got like the ginormous butterflies around. And I know you want them to be seen, but it just kind of adds to the, you know, size weirdness. And then you've got other repeating elements like the ferns, and bushes back here and stuff. And then, you know, you've got repeating elements in the water that are exactly the same as other ones, as well as the grass in front of it. The pelican just apparently floating on water by standing there, like walking on water. So like you'll find that you can't really, you can put them on top, but you
Yeah, I
can't
was
like
gonna
layer
say
them in each other very
another
easily.
classic tell here is that not a one of these creatures has a shadow. They've just dropped a
Yes.
stamp onto a background and they haven't done any effort whatsoever to like actually incorporate it visually into the setting.
Yeah, like the alligator's not in the water, neither's the pelican. There's a little bit that probably comes with it, the shadow under the tree, but yeah, nothing else has a shadow. It's all like there's no lighting thought. Like there's probably lighting coming from like four different directions, depending on the animal. So and they're all just sort of faced mostly one direction. They don't seem to really be having any purpose. Like, what's the story? Like, there's no story, right? So that's you're just gonna have a lack of all of that. Um, yeah, it's not great. So so here are some other examples. This is like, you know, the tiny little lion, like he's a full-grown lion, but he's just like smaller than the baby. No. And you can see this one's from fiber because, you know, like I said, a lot of badness comes from fiber. Obviously, you know, like they've got really big, pretty eyes, and then, you know, you just got your standard eyes. So that's a little bit less harder to see, but there are like some style differences and stuff. Of course, repeating elements in the background. This one's really fun. This one's got like this random dark black outline dog here, and then like this other pig that's a totally different style, and you've got like the turtles in different style. You've got like these more like semi, you know, closer to realism. They just have like a much more detailed color pattern more so. It's like stylized. But they're like closer to that. And these animals here, which are just towering over the trees, which wouldn't normally. Yeah, it's just a hot mess. So you got like different types of styles in the trees and the grass. They're all just kind of placed randomly. Um, no thought to composition. Yeah. So, and then these are some lovely ones. So this one has like Pokemon in it, which is trademarked, copyrighted, and IP, etc. That's not theirs. So that's not okay. And it's also very small. So like Pikachu is not this small compared to people. And I don't know why he's floating in the tree. So that should be a clue right then and there. And then these ones, he's like really big. He's on the second floor here. Because they don't really think about like depth and like where to place things and perspective and size comparison. So and then she's like, this tree must be really small, or again, she's pretty close to the house, so she's quite large. She's a different style than he is. The dog is a completely different style. Of course, repeating elements. And again, these people are towering over the second story building there because they're really close actually. And then this one, they didn't even bother to spell things right. I think it's probably just promoting their services, but yeah, I would never ever purchase anything from them. This is everything that we've talked about the same, so I don't need to go over it, but you get the picture. All right. So AI and clip arts out of the way, plagiarism is a little harder to detect. And so unless you know, like, okay, this is Mickey Mouse, right? Something that you know. There's a lot of artists out there. How do you find out who is stealing somebody else's art and using it as their own in their portfolios or Instagram, whatever? So plagiarism, of course, is people using other people's art and presenting it as their own. It's very common on sites such as Fiverr and, kind of those bad actors that they're sending you by DM or whatever. But it can happen like anywhere, anytime, any place. So what you do is you take the image and you put it in Google's reverse image search, and you'll be able to check if those illustrations are created by the illustrator or somebody else. It's not 100%. But it is something that you can do to try. We do have an example that happened in one of the children's book groups that I'm in. I don't think this was in our group. I think someone had tried to plagiarize them in the past, but that was obviously eons ago. So actually someone recently did. And I was like, perfect. I'm just going to grab this. So this person here posted this, didn't even spell everything right. When I know we all make typos, but sometimes that's a flag that it's a spammer because they just don't care. They just want a quick buck. So they posted a bunch of images by this other artist, which I recognized because we had that issue before. And this Marin lady, so she has it. I believe this is maybe Behance, and this is on her Instagram. And she posted this like a year or so ago, and this person just posted it recently. So that's one thing. I mean, it's not a for sure thing to know like if it looks like someone posted it first or not. But they posted in legit areas, a long-standing Instagram account, long-standing Behance account, whereas this is just they're more brand new account, and they just posted it. So and again, this has been an image that's been ripped off before. So definitely do the reverse image search and look and see if you can find it by anybody else, because that can help you in your journey as you're verifying, is this a legit person to work with? So another thing is we mentioned was the work in progress. Like, do you see different stages either in their portfolio, or are they willing to share it? And again, there is an app that can help people to do that, like to fake it. But if you're discerning enough, you can tell the difference. So for example, here's my sketch. So if you kind of see, oops, I'm trying to zoom in here. So you can kind of see like things are different colors, and it's very kind of sketchy and loose in some areas. Like this poor this poor octopus is a little derpy. And then I did have a line art one, but I just wanted to have three. So then line art would be next, and this is my flat color here. So you can see, the octopus is much better, and the book is more defined. The helmet's, more defined, that sort of stuff. So you can kind of look and see. And then in the final, you can see even more difference, right? So I changed the helmet because this is before I knew the coloration of the helmet, or I just want to get the colors in there. So I changed the helmet colors. The violin went from being just a standard to much more detailed and filled out. There's lighting, there's shading, there's texture, whatever. So you can see kind of the difference in that. And that really shows that someone has really taken the time and gone through the process and didn't just use like AI and clip art and all that plagiarism. So that's really important to see if they already have it posted or if they're being willing to share that with you. So there's a few more tips for
I
authors,
did.
and we'll get to illustrators. Yeah, did you
I
have
did.
something?
I found the website that with the app that is creating fake work in progress videos. It's paintsundo.com. And I would encourage people to go and watch just so that you can kind of see what it is that they are creating and trying to pass off as an actual artist process, because
Mm,
it is limited by the fundamentals of AI image generating technology, which is basically that it can't draw in the way that a human does. It independently iterates, it creates individual illustrations of each point in an artist's process. So it will create what it thinks the sketch would look like, and then it would create what it thinks the flat colors would look like, and then it would create what it thinks the final render would look like. But each one is a little different because you can't prompt engineer the same image over and over and over again. So there will be like jarring kind of breaks between each version of it. The sketch will have eyes that are in a different location, or a hairstyle that's completely different. And it doesn't show actual like lines being drawn or anything like that, because that's not how the AI works. So there will be harsh splits between still images of the process that it has artificially dummied up, and it's sped up really fast so that you can't really analyze and go, hey, wait a minute, but that looks completely different than the sketch looked. It's just happening so quickly that it can kind of trick you into thinking that it's a continuous process, but it's obviously not. So I would say when you're evaluating someone's work in process videos or speed paints, look for someone actually drawing, because in any speed paint rendering, you'll see the actual part of like lines being applied. Whereas this is more like a GIF almost of a harsh split between still images.
yeah. And that'll take some time to like get the eye for. As illustrators, we're gonna be able to see it more readily.
Yeah.
But definitely maybe see if there's some illustrators you know and trust, and if they have any speed draws, or speed, progress videos that you can watch and start to learn. Um, this industry takes a lot of learning, and there's no end in sight as far as I can see. I've been in it for specifically in this industry, not just the art industry, but this industry for like 3 4 years now. So I have no end in sight for learning, and I love that aspect. But also it can be a little overwhelming when you first start. But it's really important to understand the industry, to understand these nuances, to understand illustration more, so that as you're choosing your path, especially for self-publishing, when you're not going to go to a traditional publisher and that's legit and everything is going to handle all this for you kind of have to learn a little bit of like these types of stuff, so that way you can choose really great people to work with. You're not going to get scammed and waste money and time on people that are not legit. So I know it's a lot, but it's important to learn so that you can guide your book in the right way. Um and produce a beautiful, quality book that children are going to love. It's going to be easier to sell when you've got great images and you've done the editing, and you've connected with people that are going to help you support you and everything. It's a much better experience, and you're going to be much more successful in the end than just trying to get by quickly and get it published as quickly as possible and not worry about that stuff. Maybe you'll get lucky, but maybe not. So like, so that's what I recommend, as you go along in this process. All right. Let's see here. So there's a few more tips for authors as you are going along the process. And I know this is focused a lot about authors as you're looking for an illustrator.
But it could be for anything, you know, if you're looking at a publisher or an organization or somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to market or promote your book." And, you know, like it could be anybody. It's important to really consider them and see what their online presence is and, you know, do they have references? Do they have case studies? You know, things that you can like look at as proof of what they can do for you. I know like editors, they'll actually do like a free page or like a sample editing for you for free or you know, up front. So just so you can just so there's different things you can do. You can commission one piece of art from an illustrator without having to go all the way in to the whole commit to the whole project. You can just do like one custom piece from them and just see how it all works. That's a good way to like, you know, if you're really wanting to move forward with someone you're not sure, because you're just so new at everything, that's a good way to like test things out. So these three more tips are: it feels too good to be true. And this will come with time. But you know, are they doing work for cheap or free? So you go, wow, really? That's the price? I was expecting so much more. Or you know, whatever it might be, or ooh, this is like really good pricing, or they're offering free custom samples and they're doing this for free and that for free. Um Established illustrators know that a lot of them know anyway, that they need a charge for their work because they only have so much time in a week that they can actually work because, you know, I talked about earlier with getting stress injuries on your hand and arm and wrist and everything. Totally legit. And so they only have so much ability in a week to work without burning themselves out. Because burnout is a huge issue in the creative industry. So, if they're doing a lot of stuff for free, you know, just be more discerning. I mean, maybe they just don't know, or maybe they're scamming, right? So we just have to like kind of check and see. Trust your gut. If you feel like something's off, it probably is. So, um, some people are not comfortable with video chat. Not that can happen. But if they're not willing to do that or phone calls even or anything like that, that's a little suspicious because I mean you're running the business as an illustrator or freelance business. It's very important that you can connect with your authors on a more personal level, like a phone call or video chat. Um, so some signs are they only want to communicate via DMs. Like even on Facebook, they're like, "Hey, DM me, DM me, DM me," right? Only email. Maybe they're directing you to WhatsApp, which is an app that's like not secure and like kind of people use. It's very kind of you can just be whoever, right? So it's not a legit kind of format. So we don't even allow any WhatsApp in our group at all. Just because unfortunately that's too much you know, for scams and stuff. So and the other thing to look out for is payment and contract terms. Is it fair? Do they want to do payment via like Cash App or like some weird method like that? Doesn't provide a contract to you because they're the illustrator, they're the freelancer, they should be providing contracts. So if they don't have one, that's could be a sign that they're just new and don't know, but it also could be a sign that, you know, they just want to get your money and run. And then they're not willing to sign the NDA. So some people do that, you know, to look at your manuscript, they want an author wants the illustrator to sign an NDA to protect their you know, the property, their what's it called? They just want to protect their book, right? So an NDA means that they're not going to disclose that, they can't use it, and that kind of stuff, their own purposes. So, um, so we talked a little bit about, you know, they want to charge so little and or free or things like that. But it might help to know like how much is reasonable then. What's fair? You know, what is the fair market rate out there? We don't have anything recent. The last one that I've seen that's, you know, kind of official legit thing is from 2020. And we've had inflation since then. So keep that in mind when you look at these prices. But consider that the illustration process for a book often takes like 3 to 6+ months, depending on, you know, everything. So that's when they do actually have a slot for you. So and maybe then when you go to an illustrator, they're not available for 3 months. And then once they get started, it'll take 3 to 6 months. So keep that in mind for your time frame. You know, if you want it rushed, you're gonna have to pay more. Um, and then most illustrators can only work on 1 to 2 children's books at a time. So for me, I've just graduated to 2 illustrating books at a time, but that's a lot. Like for my mind to kind of wrap around and be able to focus on and like really like live in that book so that I can think about that book, and like even in my spare time, I think about the books. Like it just happens. I don't control it. So, but if I've got like 2 books, like that's probably maximum for my brain to handle. Like it's a lot. I don't know, Melissa, have you had any experience with doing multiple books at a time? Are you better than I am on that front, or is that pretty standard for you too? Like pretty reasonable, 1 to 2 books at a time?
Well, I think I am a little bit invigorated by having lots of different projects in different stages, because if it's all pencils, I can get burnt out on pencils. And if it's all, colors, then I can get burnt out on colors. But yeah, books are such a huge investment. I try not to do more than 2 at a time, but I will juggle, a couple of books with one-off pin-up illustrations or cover art illustrations or book designs for other people. So I do like to have lots of different stuff going so I can pivot from one thing to another, because I maybe I have undiagnosed ADHD, but yeah, in terms of like books, it's such a huge investment in time and money and resources, and you want to take that commitment really seriously. And the last thing you want to be is an author that commits to delivering a book on a timeline and then gets overextended and fails to meet that timeline. And then the word gets out that you can't be trusted
Hmm.
and you're flighty, and illustrators already have to deal with that kind of. So
Yeah.
definitely, you don't want to overcommit and get overextended.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a whole other segment on like contracts and agreements on, how to prevent, flighty illustrators. And obviously, as you're going through and choosing illustrators, having past references and, that sort of stuff is really helpful to make sure you're choosing an illustrator that's not, flighty, because that is an issue in the illustrators sector. Um, so yeah, I mean, there are cases where you can, but I would say if you were to take on 3 at a time all the time, you'd probably get burnt out pretty quickly,
Oh
for
yeah.
most people. So that might be like a rare case, or someone who like Melissa that maybe has like abilities, or maybe they're at different stages. Because I tend to try to make mine where I start the 2 at once almost, or very slightly different, but then sometimes they kind of go at different speeds, and so um that kind of works out doing 2, but it is a little bit more challenging, obviously a lot more time commitment, working evenings and things like that at times, which if I have to work evenings because I'm trying to handle, I committed to it. I didn't say it's gonna be a rush or work evenings, so that's on me. But if someone be rushed and it's like, oh, I need it done quickly, in this very short amount of time, then I probably won't take on any other work. I have to charge them extra, because then I have to really focus on theirs. So that might be why someone's not going to charge you extra just because. It's because they're probably having to work evenings, weekends, and they're only focusing on your project. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm
the
turning
the
down other
pricing is
work.
based off, a longer period of time where they can work on other stuff. And now you want it done quickly and you want it done, to do that, then they have to kind of shirk off other stuff. So,
Mhm.
of course, if you're requesting samples or sketches or whatever, they're not free. So just know, like, people should not be offering that for free. If they are, maybe they're a scammer, maybe not. A lot of illustrators don't realize that they need to charge for that, or they don't feel comfortable because we're just we have issues with that. Like we often undercharge for our work, and because we love to do it and we really want the project, and we're just excited. So but if anybody offers you for free, please do pay them if you feel like they're legit and you want to work with them. Don't just allow them to do free work for you. And kind of the rule of thumb that we go by, because there's people in other countries or other areas that are paid, like their cost of living is totally different than ours. um so we feel like it's fair that if you're an author, you would pay an illustrator at least the minimum wage in your city. So like if you're in San Francisco, obviously your minimum wage is totally different than some middle of nowhere place in the US, or that has really low cost of living, and their minimum wage is $7 an hour instead of 20. I feel like it's almost, I know like fast food in California is like $20 an hour now, which is crazy. And then that could be different from another country, right? Could be even way less. So think about if you're paying someone in your own city, you would at least pay the minimum wage, because that's like what's the law. So even if you're getting someone from a different city or a different country, you should at least pay that minimum, even if they offer you less. Because again, artists tend to undercharge themselves. They just really want the projects. They really want to work on, be creative. They want to they're trying to, hustle and make a go at it. And it's very difficult in the art sector right now, or just in general has been. The starving artist is unfortunately still a thing on some cases. So, even if they offer lower, if you believe they're worth it, like they're good quality illustrator, offer them more. You will be like you will be their favorite person, and they will definitely prioritize your work, especially if they're getting paid more than they're getting paid in any other project. And it's just fair, right? We're not doing the whole like sweatshop thing that so many clothing companies have done, right? We shouldn't fall into that. Just because someone's willing to do it for that low doesn't mean it's right. To get onto the actual cost, so I just pulled this information from readsy.com and scbwi.com. It's in scbwi's publishing manual, like kind of guide. And if you join scbwi.org, you can get it. It's really helpful. It goes through a lot. It's, like I said, $85 a whole year. Gets lots of different great resources. And so this info is taken from them. I didn't come up with it. This is not my info. So of course there's editing, which includes these. So that's like $345 for editing. And that seems to be pretty on par from the couple of editors I talked with. Of course, some could be more. Again, and it's 4 years later, so definitely consider it could be more. But it is very helpful to get your book edited before you start illustrations. Like I would say almost required. Because if you ended up, doing that afterward, and then your story changes and your, the ending changes, or totally different things, and that can actually change what the illustrations are, and now you're going to have to pay more for the illustrator to do their thing. So it's also not just accounting for misspellings and stuff like that, grammar, but it's also considering, does a child say those things, or is that more of like adult speech, or are those words appropriate for the target age group that you're in? It's okay to have a couple of hard words or a few hard words, but if like you have a lot of big words that you don't really think about as being a big problem for kids that age, an editor would go, you have a lot of these words. So unless it's a book that's meant to like challenge kids in that way, maybe we need to change some of these, right? So maybe this content is not 100% appropriate for that age. They're not ready for that, right? That's not something that kids that age do. Things that you might not think about, or just, have issues with, or whatever, that you're not realizing, then they can bring that to light, because that's what they do. Like that's their focus, right? So they specialize in that. And so they're going to be able to help guide you in that way to make sure that your book is amazing, and it's going to sell well, and it's going to appeal. Like I had an author that one of her lines they were just talking about like kids and playing basketball and baseball and all that. And they said we're going to be ballers. And they didn't know that like that was a bad connotation of like gangs and drugs and stuff. So they just had no clue. So I thought it was like a little weird, but I didn't have any clue because I'm like naive, I guess, apparently. And thankfully an editor caught it. So, or somebody caught it. So they were able to change that up and everything. But I did change the whole page. So we completely redid that page, a totally different thing. And so, these are the important things that editors can do to like help prevent big issues later. And then you've got your cover design and the book interior design and formatting. So that's just taking all the images and all the words and putting together. Super important. You think, okay, I'm just putting some words on a page, which is a big deal, but to make it work. And of course the cover's got to really stand out. There's a lot of different things and know-how and just ways that they can really make it like branded almost, that it's, and when people see that font and that way, like they know it's you, versus some generic font. So you can really go far with that when you have a great designer working on the book, and they work in tandem with the illustrators, how it should work. And so you got the illustrator here, and so they're doing all of the pictures on the cover and the interior. And again, they can really take you far too if you get a great illustrator that's in line with your book. Highly recommend that. So you can see all the rates here. I usually land around the 5,000 ish, give or take mark. I'm kind of in the middle between these two ish. Sometimes it's a little closer to like 7 or 8, 6, 7, 8, but sometimes it's a little bit tiny bit less, but I'm usually at least 5,000. And so, and I'm a pretty well established illustrator. You might be able to find someone that's a little newer, charge less, but then, just keep in mind when someone's newer that they don't know everything. So if you have a new author, if you're a first time author and you're going to a first time illustrator, that's not a good recipe. So probably one of you should be experienced is what I'm saying. Just keep that in mind. All right. So here are just some other scams. There's just too many to list and talk about and go over in depth. So, people want to promote or market your book via DM or posting promote your book type posts on Facebook. I see them all the time. It's a scam, and they end up just spamming you in your DMs. They seem legit, and then that they promise you the world or whatever for marketing, and yeah, no, they want you to pay, of course. No. So just anything like that, if they're reaching out to you, they're not legit. And again, I have a little notation on here. This is obviously not always the case, but these are just ones that we see out there. So publishers or other organizations or whoever being the first to reach out. So just in general, if you've got like, a big publisher or a big organization or, big things and they're reaching out to you, be suspect, research it, investigate it, ask other people for help to make sure it's legit before you say yes or no. I see this all the time in our groups, lots of questions about that. Lots of people saying they got scammed and it's about that. So just be careful. That can definitely happen, but it is pretty rare. Usually, your agent or somebody, you're reaching out to them. It's not usually the way around. Publishers that ask you to pay to publish with them. So 99.99% of the time, if you submit your work to a publisher and they accept it and they're like, "Oh, this is awesome. I want to publish your book. It's great and everything." And then this is the payment you have to give to us because we're a hybrid publisher. So we do some part, you do the other part. If they ask you to pay, you run away. So just remember that little thing. If a publisher asks you to pay, run away. It's a great mantra to have. It's 99.99% of the time it's a scam basically because you are the customer. So it's not them selling the books. So that's what usually traditional publishers do, is they're getting their money from selling the book. They're getting their money from publishing the book, which means once they publish it, they don't really care anymore. They move on to the next author. So they're no longer focused on making sure your book is amazing and beautiful and will sell well and done well and quality and all that kind of stuff because they don't really care. Like they're not gonna spend a lot of time on marketing or anything. They're moving on to the next author that's willing to pay the money. So just keep that in mind. And then sometimes you can't even republish somewhere else. You have to go through a lot of trouble and money to buy back the publishing rights from them, which is another part of their scam. So that way you can publish somewhere else. So, be careful. And there are like very rare people out there, very rare companies that will kind of like work with you. Basically, they're almost like guiding you in the process, but you have full control of your book, your publishing rights. Those are pretty rare. Most of the time it's just a scam. All right. So then the service costs are way too high or way too low. So we talked about the service cost in the last one. So if someone's coming to you and saying 600 books to illustrate your whole book, yeah, I would be concerned. Like, that doesn't seem like the right amount, right? If someone's coming to you saying $50 to do your full editing, again, concerning, right? So if they're way below, or maybe they're way too high, like you're like, why are you charging like way above the average? Like, I would want to know what they're going to do for me, right? Like what kind of amazing things are you going to do for me? And I want proof and I need, I would need a lot, but, usually you'll find it's too low. So just be wary of that. Definitely be suspect. And it's not like a for sure thing, but that's definitely a way to find a scam. And then, charging for services that are free. So I noticed this recently that like a publisher someone's working with It was already a hybrid publisher, but they were wanting to charge to copyright their book. Like a lot of money, like $300. And I think it's like $50 to copyright your book. And you could use that yourself pretty easily. So like they want to charge like $300. I'm like, no. And then there's a lot of companies that will say, and they even call themselves KDP, right? Or like Amazon. Isn't there a lot of companies, Melissa, that are like called Amazon KDP Publishing and all those like variations?
Oh
And
yeah,
they
yeah,
charge you to publish on KDP, which is free. So
yeah.
yeah, like don't fall for those. Like you do not need to pay for KDP to publish. And I think Ingram Spark is also free now because they just take it more on the back end, right? Um, but it's free to publish with them as well, or did they change that again?
I am not sure my
They,
experience
they
with
changed it
Spark
recently, and I'm
has
not sure if that's stuck. I haven't
been.
looked
Yeah,
back recently, but yeah, I mean, in the past it was like $50. So
yeah.
you just need to pay that directly to them. You don't need to like pay a third party to like do it for you. You just pay them directly. And now if you need a third party to help you with something, that's totally different. But you should be paying that company directly. And then another one was ISBN numbers. So
Oh
ISBN
yeah.
numbers are kind of expensive. So if you end up going the route where you're not just doing Amazon and you want to go English Spark or offset printing, which is when you print in bulk, like 500 to 1,000 copies at a time plus, you're going to need what's called an ISBN number, which is like a little code, like a little number. And then so if people are charging you for the barcode and they're charging for the ISBN number, first of all, the ISBN number only can be bought through Bowker. I don't know if I'm saying that right. We'll have that information in the resources, but you can only buy it from there, and it's really expensive if you only buy one. I definitely recommend if you're doing more than one book, um, to go ahead and get the pack if you can afford it. But do not fall for other people charging you for it because then you don't technically own your publishing rights full out. It's always going to be like under them as the publisher or something weird like that. It is not legit. You do not, it could be that you don't even get a proper ISBN number, right? So they could be totally scamming you and don't even give you a good ISBN number, even if they're the publisher. So there's lots of problems with that. Do not do that. So check and see before you pay for a service, can I get it for free? Check with the community, like on Facebook groups. Check with if you're part of scbwi.org. If you're part of there, they have local chapter meetings and they have different resources and people that you can contact. Check with somebody trusted, like, do I need to pay for the service or is it free? If you're not sure, if you can't find out on your own. Of course, there's always Google, but there's a lot of services that are free or cheap, and then someone's trying to charge you a lot of money for them. So just keep an eye out for that. And then I've seen so many. We guarantee this many sales, or we guarantee this and guarantee that. There are things you can't guarantee. You can't guarantee that people are going to buy something. That's not something you can guarantee. So if you see outlandish guarantees, don't believe them and just run away. Block them, move on. All right. So finally, very quickly, because I think we're getting close to time here. So, illustrators. These are tips on what to watch out for when you're looking for work. There are things that we need to do. I know a lot of it in the industry is based on, authors and what they're looking out for, but there are things that we need to think about, and we should be interviewing authors and publishers and agents as much as they are with us, right? Or organizations, whatever. We need to be thinking that it's a two-way street. And we need to be vetting them and checking with them and checking on them and everything, not just the other way around. When I illustrate a book with an author, I'm going to be tied with them basically forever, right? Because the copyright will last, and I don't give my copyright away. So my copyright will last my entire lifetime plus like 70 years or something. So that's my whole life that I'm going to be having a connection to this author. So I want to work with great people that are, and plus the whole process of illustrating could take months, right? 3 to 6+ months. So that's a lot of time, and I want to make sure I can communicate well with them and that they can communicate well with me, and that like we connect, and I understand like what they're going for and like what they're looking for. That we just we get along, we jive, right? So that's really important, and that they're their values and the focus of their book aligns with my values and what I would like to do. So everything has to kind of work. I'm inspired by their work, all that kind of stuff. So I'm interviewing potential clients or authors as much as they are with me. So you need to check, do they have a website? Not all authors will at first, right? But maybe they do. This also goes for, other organizations or, people that want to market your book or whoever contacts you. Do they have a website? How active is their social media accounts and for how long? So again, authors, it can be hard, but at least if they have a personal one or something, or but those are things you can check and see. Is this like a real person, right? Versus like a fake account. Are they willing to pay fair market rates? So I have many people inquire with me and many people that don't sign with me because I am too expensive. I'm reasonable rates for what I give, especially. And if they're not willing to do that, then I can go ahead and just say, well, thank you. That's not gonna work for me. So there are lots of posts that we see come through when people want to collaborate and share the profits. I would never ever do that. I don't even, I would only do that with maybe my husband if he wrote a book and wanted to collaborate with me, or my children, or somebody super close to me. And like even then, like that would be a recipe maybe for a disaster. So you'd have to really think about that person and if they're gonna hold up their end and etc. Um, Definitely not a stranger that I just meet and like recently, or just anybody else, because there's no guarantee that the book is going to sell and how many copies that's going to make back the money that would normally be paid to an illustrator in royalties. It's just not a thing. So especially for someone that you don't know well and you don't trust and have a long-term history with, that not even in consideration, I would think, for an illustrator. I mean, what do you think, Melissa? Is that something that you would ever do?
Oh God, no,
Anybody?
that's my biggest red flag. I hate I hate collaborate and share the profits. That's an auto pass. Not to
Yeah.
be too harsh on it because, I know that sometimes when you're just starting out, you're desperate and you just want to get your name on something,
Hmm.
and you just want some credits to your name, and I totally understand, and I have been young and hungry and I get it, but in my experience, people who want to collaborate and share the profits don't understand on a basic level how time consuming the art creation process is. And
Hmm.
so they
Don't treat
right.
it with respect.
Exactly. Yeah. I work as a writer and an illustrator, and I can tell you it takes me maybe a couple of months to write a script for a graphic novel, but it took me 10 years to illustrate it. So
Hmm.
it's just not the same level of effort. And when you're talking about a sunk cost of hundreds of labor hours into something, crossing your fingers and hoping that you will make enough sales on the back end to pay for that is it's not fair. It's
Yeah.
abusive, it's exploitative, and it
Yeah.
just I can't endorse or promote it or support it as a practice for anyone, no matter how young and hungry you are and how desperate you are to
Hmm.
start out. Like, find someone who will pay you for your time. Your time has value.
Get a grant, do Kickstarter,
Yeah,
fundraise, save up the
yeah,
money, ask family and
yeah,
friends to pre-order a book. Like there's so many options besides putting it on the illustrator's shoulders to
yeah.
the amount of time you have to
For
spend. That means
sure.
they cannot make any other money. You
Right.
have bills to pay. Like a lot of illustrators are not just doing this as a side hobby and just for fun. And even still, they should get paid. But I'm just saying, like, it's
Yeah.
breadwinning money that we have to make. And so to ask illustrators to do this is a huge ask. Huge. And yeah, for it to maybe not even pan out or whatever, um is difficult to stomach, because it may be years before you get your money back, or the money that you're due, if at all. Um so
And
a lot
also,
of
I think
times
a lot.
I've seen posts and people, authors, not understanding why is it that we don't collaborate. I mean, why do I have to pay for it, right? The authors ask, why do I have to pay for everything? And why isn't it like that? So the reason is that the author is self-publishing, which then makes the author the publisher, right? So just as when you go to traditional publisher, you're expecting the publisher to pay everybody. They coordinate everything, they make sure it sells, and they also have to pay, The standard is, you pay an upfront, what's it called? It's not like a deposit, but it's like
The
a
advance. Mhm.
they paid an upfront advance to the author and illustrator. It probably similar or more than I get paid for the entire project, like ever. Um, and then they also, once they sell enough books, because that's the name of their game, their focus is selling books, and that's how they get paid. So they're really interested in selling books. And then once that has sold enough books and you basically bought out, from your royalties, it finally buys you out so that you can start making royalties on top of that. Not every book does. A publisher will publish, like, say 5 books in a year, and maybe one will be good, right? One will take off and pay for the rest. That's what I hear. I don't know, like, I'm not a huge expert or anything in the industry. This is what I've learned and heard. So do take that with whatever grain of salt that you want there. But they don't even, like, every book that goes doesn't always even make it to royalties with a traditional publisher. So to expect, so you're the publisher, it's your project, it's your book, your baby, and then you want other people to donate their time to you. It doesn't work that way. Like, just like with the publisher, like, they're asking you to pay to publish your book with them, like, run away, because that's just not how that works. That's not how the industry works. It doesn't make sense that way. The incentives are no longer there. Like, it's just wrong. So and in the meantime, that person's working without getting paid. So that's just a non-starter there. So that's really, really important that illustrators do not fall for this. It's so tempting because especially when you're new and starting out, you just want to get going, right? You just want to get your first book. But I can tell you that if you get going on that book and you're doing it basically for free at that point, because there's no guarantee, especially if it's under their name, that they're even going to pay you when the money does start coming in. I would hope so, but there's no guarantee, right? It's long and hard work, and there's many times where it's difficult. Even though you love doing it, it's difficult to keep going and to keep pushing, because there's just, like, so many steps and so many pages and so many details and changes and whatever else that you have to do, and you want to get it all right, you want to do a great job. So there's a lot of work. There's hundreds of hours, 100+ hours in it for sure. 3 to 6 months worth of work, so it could be, even more than that. And when you're not getting the money, like, you feel pretty, like, the motivation could be really lacking at that point. So you might even start to resent the work, and that is not a good place to be in. So if the same thing, if you get underpaid, it's the same type of situation. If you're not getting paid appropriately and fairly for your work, when you're doing a full-fledged book, you can get to that point and it's not a fun place to be. I've definitely been there before because I didn't know, newbie, illustrator,
Yep.
and didn't know, and I've definitely been at those points. So definitely, thankfully they were mostly on smaller projects, and I can get through them, but uh definitely
Yeah,
hard to keep
actually,
going.
speaking of bad experiences, I was going to say, and this was actually with a publisher and not with an author, but I will say that the other problem is if you are working collaboratively and it's for, you know, let's say $5,000
Mhm.
and the author is agreeing to pay you based off of the sales. You don't really have a good way to audit those sales figures. You're taking the author's word for it. And then for a smaller dollar amount, which $5,000 feels like a lot of money when you're young and hungry and you worked for 6 months and you haven't been paid. But trust me, if you try to go to court on that, they will tell you it is small claims. You can't, especially if you're working with someone who is from another country or even from another state, you can't just take them to court over a $5,000 contract dispute. It is extremely difficult. The one time that I had this issue with a publisher, I had to go to a free legal clinic for artists, and the lawyer told me that this dispute is costs more than it's worth to pursue.
Wow.
So I just had to eat the $5,000 that they didn't pay me. So yeah, when you get into a collaborative relationship with someone and you're gambling on the fact that they will eventually pay you on the back end, most of the time, if they don't, you will find that the dollar amount that you're out is not worth enough for the court to even take your loss seriously. And you will be, like I was, looking at 6 months of work without pay. And
Yeah.
that's really hard.
Yeah, really hard. And yeah, there's unfortunately just too many of the stories out there. And so yeah, it's really important. And I think we'll talk about the next slide of, getting your payment, maybe not, but of course, payment terms need to be fair. You're getting your deposit from the illustrator or the author before the work starts, getting paid throughout the work, and then not giving them the full high-res files until after the last payment has been received. Now, with my authors, because of the whole, I don't want to ever go to court, like, ever, okay? So I
Yeah.
always want to make sure that the payment that I receive from the author is through a secure payment. So whether it's through like Square credit card or PayPal, because they can dispute. If I have not held up and I've like totally just left and I, I'm just disappeared into the night, or maybe something happened to me, right? And I can no longer fulfill the contract. Instead of taking me to court, they can just go to payment dispute with the vendor, okay, like their credit card or PayPal, and say, hey, this person isn't doing their end of the bargain. Like I've tried to mediate with them and figure out, get a solution, and like they're either non-responsive or they're not willing, and so then they will go to bat for you, and you could potentially get your money back that way. So that's always the first line of defense for authors working with illustrators, and with the illustrators, it's getting paid up front for your work. So that's kind of how that works. Obviously, if they're offering low rates, they want it done quickly, but they don't want to pay extra for it. They just have unrealistic expectations. Like, I want a, 32-page book finished in a week or a month, or even like, something like that. It's like, well, that doesn't really work that way. Or, it's like, I don't have availability until like 3 months from now, but they're like, no, I want it now, but I'm not going to pay any extra for that. I mean, if I have to go and either work extra hours on top of the work I already have, which I totally have booked up, I need to charge extra money because now I'm working evenings and weekends, and I might have to even put off some other work or push back their deadlines, which they already had locked in and everything. So I have to talk with them and see if they're willing. So, I'm gonna have to do a lot of things on my end to make that work. So of course it needs to be done more, and it needs to be realistic. And then, of course, if they're not a first-time author, which I know there's a lot of first-time authors out there, but if they're not, a few things to think about is go look at their published books. What have they published in the past? Do they have good reviews, and how many reviews did they get? If they don't have a lot of reviews, that may mean that they're not going to market very well, right? And sometimes that can happen, and it's not like the be all end all, right? They don't have a lot of reviews, I'm not working with them. That's not it. It's kind of like you're taking all the different pieces and parts into a account, and then, putting a picture together, right? So, say if they have 5 books and all of them have low reviews, I would be a little concerned at that point. Like 3 or more books and there's like very little to no reviews, which means they're not marketing, or they're just not good books, right? Because again, are they selling well? That can be sometimes hard to tell, but sometimes you can tell by the ranking, or that type of thing, to see if they're selling well. And then the other question is, especially if it's a series, why aren't they working with the previous illustrator? So they already had an illustrator and they worked on books with. That might be a good question for them. I mean, it's a totally valid question. A lot of times people don't ask it because, we're just raised to be nice, right? At least in the Midwest here. I don't know about anywhere else, like, but the Midwest, we were raised to be nice. So we don't ask the hard questions like that, but you have to. You're going to be working with this person. You're going to be rely on them to pay you properly and to not, do wrong things. You just want to know, like, what happened? Why aren't you working them? Maybe they want a different style. Maybe they want a different age group, and that person wasn't comfortable with it. Maybe they didn't like the subject matter. Maybe something happened with them, and that could be potentially some red flags for them as an author, or maybe just the illustrator, right, was the red flag. Who knows? So good to know why, if they've already pre-published with someone else previously, why aren't they working with them again? All right, so some more tips for illustrators. Again, you'll see a lot of these kind of seem similar, check their online presence, check their books, feels too good to be true, won't do video chat, and then payment. So it's just like slightly different for each one, but thankfully they're very similar. And so, again, are they offering a decent amount of money right off the bat? So if someone sends you a message via social media or email, and this is a classic one, I want you to illustrate a picture of my son's dog, and I'll give you, my budget is X amount, which is usually like 300, 1,000, 900, 600, whatever it is. But they're just going to go ahead and offer you, this is my budget for this thing. It's not a 100% thing. That's a classic one of like illustrate my son's dog. But just because they have a budget right off the bat, it's pretty rare. I'm not saying it's never going to happen, but it's pretty rare. So that's definitely a huge red flag. And then just trust your gut, right? Like if someone coming at you with an offer, whether they're an author or an organization or anything, some sort of person that's coming to you and they're giving you like this offer that just seems too good to be true, it probably is. But double check, you don't want to just like turn down a good opportunity. But get some help from the community. There's a lot of great authors and illustrators and people out there, other experts in the industry that will definitely help you in the Facebook groups or SCBWI or whoever you're with. Definitely ask them to help you discern whether it's a good offer or not. All right, and then of course, if the author won't meet via video chat, that's kind of weird, right? And again, a phone call would be the alternative, which is not great, but at least it's something. But if they only want to chat or communicate via DMs, email, WhatsApp, I'd be a little suspect. If they don't have any legit ways to connect and be able to really connect with them and see if they're a real person, I'd be a little concerned. And then payment and contract terms. So if the author says, "Oh, I can pay you by check," I can pay you by bank transfer, which sometimes can be okay depending on like you're in different countries, but I'd still be suspect. Cash App, just anything that's like non-standard secure, often is plagued with uh scams and frauds and ways that oh, I oversent you money, can you send the rest back, that kind of stuff that you've seen out there maybe. So those are the types of ways, like say a check, because it takes so many days to clear, so then they go, "Oh, I sent you a check for too much, can you send the rest back?" Or maybe you say, "Oh, you sent me too much, oh, can you send it back to me?" Well, you send the money back to them, the check bounces, now you're on the hook for what you sent back to them. There's no way to get them that money back. It's not secure like that. So lots of scams that can happen through odd payment methods. So just be careful, think about the payment method, how to protect yourself, that sort of thing. You can, like Melissa said, you cannot 100% rely on courts, especially if they're international, different state. You don't know enough information about them. You can't send them a letter but from your lawyer, or like a notice to be in court, if you don't know where they live, if you don't have their address, if you don't have their real name, right? So really important that you make sure to protect yourself first before you even get to that point. Court should be the last line of defense, because it's going to be the hardest, the most expensive, most difficult thing. So the first thing is just don't even get yourself in a bad situation. All right, and then of course, if they're unwilling to sign your contract. So if you're an illustrator, you present a contract and they're like, "I don't want to sign a contract, can't we just get going?" Huge red flag, right? So they have to sign the contract. All right, I've talked enough. I can take a break. And Melissa has a story. What's a real experience, but she wants to share it. And it's not easy for her to share, but she wants to share it to warn others of how she experienced a scam firsthand. Are you filling up to chatting about that, Melissa, today?
Yeah, I'll just keep it really brief because,
Yeah.
it's not the details that really matter. It's kind of just like the structure of the scam, I think, which,
Yeah.
the details will change as they evolve their scamming techniques, but like fundamentally, yeah. So I think the hardest part about avoiding scams as an illustrator is that you tend to get a lot of like cold approaches from complete strangers through your inbox, which is also exactly how scams happen. And so the work of being open and available and accessible to potential clients, but not being scammed, is kind of a constant struggle. And what happened to me in 2020, which like the context is very important because it was 2020 and it was a weird year already. And I got an email from an existing game company that made mobile games, and it was offering me a full-time remote paid position for a reasonable wage, like a good, healthy living wage, with paid time off, with health coverage, with, all of the things that you would expect from a full-time paid position. And I Googled the company, and the company was real. And so it seemed legit. And they wanted me to reach out to their HR person via Telegram, which now would seem like an obvious red flag. But at the time, being 2020, it was like, okay, well, the world is shut down. Where, it's not surprising to me that you can't go into the office and have a job interview like you might in a more normal time. So I was like, all right, well, maybe this is the new normal. We're doing interviews over Zoom now, which actually would have been more normal. But what happened was they did conduct a very plausible seeming job interview over Telegram. And they asked me all the kind of job interview questions that you would think that you would have to answer. And it took about an hour. And at the end of that, they told me, hey, congratulations, we've decided to hire you. And, cue, I'm all really excited. Yay, great news. And then they say, okay, so we're going to send you a check to pay for all of the equipment that you're going to need to get set up, because you're going to need such and such a, specific laptop, specific like Wacom tablet, all these other things. So great. So they send me a check, and it's pretty much exactly like you'd already said, where I take it into the bank and I deposit the check. And at that point, they were really kind of pressuring me to hurry, hurry, hurry. And that was what started getting my radar up, was like, why would they need me to like start immediately? Why is there a huge hurry to, get through this process as fast as possible?
Yeah.
Why can't we wait? Why can't I let the check clear first before I have to have all this stuff bought and shipped? Um and so yeah, that was the first time where I started getting that little pit in my stomach of like, ooh, this doesn't feel good. And then yeah, they told me that they had sent too much, and that they were going to need Target gift cards, which was when I was like, oh, okay, it's a scam. Who wants to be reimbursed in Target gift cards?
Yeah.
But at that point, unfortunately, because I had thought that I was onboarding with a company, they had also asked me as part of my interview process to send in my social security card, a copy of my driver's license, my bank account information, so that they could pay me my first, paycheck. And so they had all of this information about me, which became a huge ordeal, where I had to go and put credit freezes on all of my credit card accounts. I had to contact my bank. I had to set up fraud alerts for all of my bank accounts. And it was, luckily, nothing ever happened. They never, other than costing me my time, I found out what was going on in time where I didn't send them any money. And, they never managed to actually use my credit or access my bank account or anything. But it was a really close call, and it was extremely scary and stressful. And, during a year that was already scary and stressful, and then devastating also once you get through all of that, of like, oh gosh, I'm so scared about my identity. I'm scared about my bank account. Also underlying that is the disappointment of thinking, oh gosh, I thought I had this life-changing job opportunity, and instead it was all an illusion. And that,
There's like a grief and mourning that comes with that, right? Of like
yeah,
what could have
that was the
been.
hardest part to get over. Like, the other things were scary and intense, and it made for a really bad few days. But like the grief of not getting that job that I thought I had got, that stayed for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think like these things are allowed to flourish because people have a hard time talking about it. No one wants to say that like I was scammed by a job offer in my inbox. I thought that I was having a job interview over Telegram with a person I didn't meet. You know, uh, it feels foolish. And I've been a working illustrator since 2005.
Mhm.
So,
It
I've
happened to
been
anybody,
around
any
for a
stage.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing about scams is that timing is everything. If it hadn't been during 2020 when things were weird already, my radar might have been a bit more up. But it's
We were
we're
all
all
just trying to survive at that time too. So it's like,
yeah, and we all have times when we're vulnerable, and if the right scam hits you at just that right moment when you're vulnerable, and maybe you're you know, so desperate that you won't ask questions or you won't think twice, or you can find excuses or justifications for why things, you know, why it doesn't smell right. But that's okay because, you know, there's a pandemic. And so it's fine that I'm doing this interview over Telegram. You know, I don't think you're stupid if you fall for a scam. It's just one of those things. It's a danger of the industry. It's a danger of being open to working with strangers, open to taking job opportunities that show up in your inbox. And it's just, I don't want to say it's the cost of doing business because I don't want to be dismissive of it, but there's no shame in thinking that you were pursuing a legitimate job opportunity and finding out that you were mistaken.
Yeah. Well, and this in my life, there's been so many times because I'm a pretty discerning, kind of wary person to begin with, where I'm always looking out for scams and frauds and that sort of stuff. But there's been many times in my life where I've gotten really close, like not to that level where I had to like, do the whole like identity thing and with all the banks and everything, but just in terms of like, trying to fall for like, a certain product that was like on a sale, right? That was like too good to be
Yeah.
true. And so like I do like for my nativity I do willow and willow is like they like carve by hand by wood or whatever. And yeah, it's like expensive. And so I'm like saw the site that was like much less expensive. It wasn't of course Willow directly or like a big site. It was just like a one-off and it was so much less expensive and I almost like fell for it. But there's like, lots of those types of things and all different types of forms, all different types of service, product, whatever it
Yeah.
may be that I just kind of stopped myself last minute. I think there was one I like almost I like had my credit card in and everything and then I was like, I
Like,
did a little more research. And I'm so glad I did. Like there's
yeah.
just so much out there. Like I almost fell for like Temu,
There is.
which is like really bad.
Oh, yeah.
Online retailer and stuff. That's like a lot of crap things that they sell and it's horrible working conditions and like just all kinds of awful stuff. But anyway, there's just like so many things out there to fall for that it's like you just have to be on guard and look out for them. So
Yeah. I think it's a lot worse than it was when I first started out in that regard. You know, like I used to take illustration jobs off Craigslist.
yeah. Yeah, I would stay away from Craigslist.
Yeah, I don't recommend
Is
it.
that really a thing still? Like, do you think it's still running, like Craigslist?
I don't know.
That's
Possibly.
interesting to go and check and see just
I
to
still
know. But
wouldn't
yeah, I mean,
recommend
anywhere, like, yeah, Facebook's the new Craigslist, it seems. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen so many scammy stuff on even like Facebook Marketplace, even like it's just everywhere. So,
It is.
obviously we can't live in fear. We can't, not do anything, right? But it's good to have like a baseline of like discernment and just like maybe double checking or checking with a trusted person or
Mhm.
community that you trust that you could say, hey, like I feel like something's off about this and I just want to make sure, am I just being,
Yeah.
is this look legit or not, right? So
Yeah, I think one of the things that I had done when I was kind of trying to investigate, one of the things that started to tip me off before they asked for gift cards
yeah,
was that I had taken the entire text of the email and I had copy pasted it into Google. And I did come across another artist saying, hey, I just got this job posting from such and such a company. And like the name of the HR person had changed and the name of the company had changed, but it
yeah,
was otherwise word for word the same email. And that was what really got me started thinking, like, uh-oh, this might not be right.
yeah. I'm sure it was already kind of too late at that point in terms of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
identity stuff.
There's a time where you go like you have kind of a sunk cost moment of like, I know that this is probably a scam, but I still don't want to believe that it's a scam because then I would have to admit that I've given scammers my bank account information and a copy of my driver's license. And so like I really need this to not be a scam.
Yeah.
And that
Like,
was kind
please
of,
don't let it be a scam because also
please
you
don't
just
let
have
it
to
be a
deal with the
scam.
fallout, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty normal human reaction. So give yourself grace on that one for sure. That's how you react.
Yeah.
But
It helps that nothing ever actually happened from it. So it's a lot easier to
yeah.
be like, oh, that was just a really close call.
Yeah, either way though, like we can beat ourselves up pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It
it's
was
important that,
really,
if you do have a, it's a live and learn moment rather than a beat yourself up forever moment. So make sure because I tend to do that to myself. Like I beat myself up
Oh,
so
yeah.
much over so many things, and I try not to, but it's just, you're gonna make mistakes, and that's just part of life. So, obviously
Yeah.
we're gonna do like, we're trying to educate everyone so that we can help with that, and you don't fall into these scams and traps and things, but just know, I mean, it can still happen, and unfortunately there's just a lot of shady people out there that spend all this effort and time to do the wrong thing rather than just do a right thing.
Right?
So it's just always going to be there. So
Amazing to me that they would target illustrators, famously known for our deep pockets.
yeah, right. It's because I think with illustrators, we are like dreamers, and
Yeah.
we just like really like want to illustrate. We like, they prey on people that they know want something, right? So like an author really wants their book published, so they can prey on that a lot, right? So I think it's because we are vulnerable, as typically artists are vulnerable, because we are putting our work out there, and
Mhm.
we do dream, and we do like want to see the best in people or whatever. And so I think just like in general, like that type of person maybe then, is more susceptible to scams perhaps. So,
Yeah, that
and
makes
then,
sense.
so you're definitely not our deep pockets, that's for sure. All right. Well, I just wanted to quickly, we wanted to like do a spotlight each month for like illustrator or author or somebody else in the Kidlit industry that we can just kind of highlight, and be able to use our little platform here to like help elevate someone else. So this month is going to be Julie Rico. So she is an author of a book that just released in June. And I illustrated it. So that's, I we definitely will take if you do want to be highlighted in a future month, just please email me, mandahswift@gmail.com. And because of course it's not just going to be people that Melissa and I have directly worked with, but Julie, she released her book recently, God Said, for I Know the Plans I Have for You. And it's just the first one in the series of like I think 4 books perhaps. And so her website's coming soon. It's not up yet. And then she's got an Instagram and Facebook, so definitely check her out there. We are releasing today our the first product line for the God Said children's book series. So there's lots of great products that we've designed. And I've tried to design it where it's not just taking the art of the book and just slapping it on a t-shirt. I hate that when like the big IPs do that, like Star Wars or Marvel or whatever, and they just take like the same thing and just slap it on there, and it's like, okay, like if I'm gonna pay for a shirt, like I would rather it be custom made, like specifically, like not just copy paste, right? So I try to do that with these things. Some of them, like the puzzles, we just put in like, instead of the words of the book, we did like quotes from the Bible, or like verses from the Bible stuff. But we did stickers, puzzles, and clothing. And then if you from the 6th to the 11th of August, you can use promo code Julie10 and save 10%. It is print on demand. We have very low margins. I wish I could give a bigger discount, but we're getting like maybe $1 or 2 per item, so at most, if that. So I don't even know. I didn't even do the math, but I figured 10% is the lowest we can get. We might be upside down on some items, but that's just the way it goes. But this is for a limited time, so just trying to kind of give back to those who are going to support us as we co-launch this product line. Um, and I mean, who doesn't want a unicorn shirt? Because like I'm definitely buying myself one. So all right, so just to give you a heads up on future Kidlit Tuesdays, the schedule. So we have another one in September, which is a Tuesday at the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. So it's how to find and choose an illustrator. And then October 15th, we have tips for markets and fairs. Melissa's definitely going to be sharing quite a bit on that one as well. And then November 19th, how to get started as an illustrator. We see a lot of people like wanting to be an illustrator. Maybe they're an artist right now, but they haven't like dived into being a children's book illustrator. And so this is going to be being able to help you with that. And then December 10th is I wrote a book, now what? So that's more of the author side of things. So the author has written the book, but they need now how to know how to publish it. So we're going to give a little short crash course on that. There's too much to talk about for any of these subjects to really go full-fledged into all the details, but we'll do a crash course there, and then we will have more in 2025. So stay tuned for that as well. And that's it. So it looked like Joy had to leave here just a few minutes ago, and some others. I know it's in the middle of the workday, so it's hopefully you can catch the recording like you are now, and be able to give us some feedback on and everything. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us either in the Facebook groups, by email, through our websites, whatever. And we're happy to help you the best that we can, or refer you to someone who might be able to help you, or resources and things. Anybody who's registered, be on the lookout for an email. You should have resources, including the entire slideshow, slide deck in there. I hope to be able to get it small enough, or I might link it to like my Google Drive if it's too large to send by email. That might have to be the way I do it. This time the Google link is fine. The Google Drive link is fine. It's from a known source. So but yeah, so definitely check out your email and make sure so you can get all the resources as well. And then make sure to share this with others. I just thank you for registering, even if you couldn't make it. And we really want to build up a community of the authors, illustrators, and other Kidlit professionals. There's like editors and designers and publishers and agents and just like all different types of people out there. And we just want to build up a community, because it's all very isolating, and things like this, sharing that information and sharing our experiences and like what worked for us and what didn't work for us, or who should we go to for this type of service, and it's just so helpful. And unfortunately it's very isolating, I find. And so Melissa and I have just been really trying to build a community between the Facebook groups and Kidlit Tuesdays and stuff, so that we can better help each other out, and just be able to produce amazing, beautiful children's books that will delight the readers, and make an impact, and just do what we love, right? Is create art and create books. And that's what we're all here for. So just thank you for your time today. And if you're rewatching this, I just thank you for your time then. And feel free to rewatch this as much as you want. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Anything you'd like to add, Melissa?
No, I think you got it. Thank you, guys.
I'm gonna need to take a no talking break after this.
Go draw.
Yeah, right. I do need to draw. I'm completing 2 books right now. We're in the last stages, so I have a lot of that to do for sure this week.
Yeah.
So wish me luck.
Last weeks are hectic. Yeah, definitely. Good luck.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.